any public that are out there waiting. Members, again, just some housekeeping rules. Please ask you to put your mobile phones on silent. I have received apologies from Mr Hussey and Mr Girvin. Are members aware of any other apologies? Also, members, I'd like to introduce and welcome Karen Barry, who is one of our new clerks who will be assisting with us here in the PAC. Karen is replacing Jack. Jack is leaving us, so sorry to see you go, Jack. But we want to wish you well in your future and as you move from one job to another. Members, at the end of our meeting today, there will be an opportunity for members to offer their best wishes to Jack personally with the usual cup of tea and cake. So, with members' indulgence, I'll move on. Members, agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the last meeting. If you're content, I'll sign them into the record. And agenda item 3, matters arising. There are no new matters arising. Agenda item 4, correspondence. There is no new correspondence. So I'd like to welcome Denver, Eddie and Richard here today with us. These are very welcome. Agenda item 5, members, is the inquiry into the cross-border broadband initiative, the Bytel project, which is at page 11 of your electronic packs. You'll find the Memorandum of Reply report on the cross-border broadband initiative. The MOR is largely positive. Out of a total of 8 recommendations, 5 have been accepted, 2 are already been implemented, and 1 has been partially accepted due to the pace report. So I don't know, members, do you want to make comment on the MOR from the department? Eddie, or?
No, Chair, I think, as you said, it is largely a positive response. 7 of the 8 fully accepted. It's worth noting that DFP has signified its intention to bring a number of the recommendations to the attention of departmental accounting officers to ensure that they're disseminated more widely across the system. Just maybe to draw your attention to recommendation 4, which notes that the Permanent Secretary's Group has established a centralised fraud investigation service with effect from 1st of April of this year. I think that's important because it was a repeated recommendation of this committee that the DFP should do that. And now that that's been done, hopefully the expertise within this unit should help to substantially improve the standard of fraud investigation across the NICS more widely. The one recommendation where they said, which wasn't fully accepted, Chair, was at recommendation 7. But I think that really just reflects the fact that the department has to do some more work to see that they can actually take a pace investigation, because there's been a significant lapse of time since these events arose. So I don't think it shows any lack of willingness to go forward with an investigation. It's just the practicalities of it.
Okay, thank you. Roy?
I accept what you're saying. But I think we should, as a committee, should keep a close watch on it and hope that it's not going to be a further lapse of time before any decision is taken. If they are going to take a decision, the sooner they take a decision, the better. So I think we as a committee should be particularly vigilant on that issue. Yeah,
sorry, I absolutely agree with that, and I think we'll keep a watch and brief on it on your behalf and bring it back to the committee in due course.
Yeah, and members, as it is customary, we do request an update in 12 months' time on the implementation of our recommendations.
But I would hope that, you know, if they are going to prosecute, it'd be silly to wait another 12 months. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. Members, agenda item 6 is our inquiry into Account NI, review of public sector financial shared services. It's at page 24 of your electronic packs. You'll find the correspondence from the Accounting Officer of DFP. The correspondence provides an update on the MOR on the inquiry into account NI in relation to the recommendation to reduce account NI costs. The Department indicate that account NI had engaged fully in a DFP internal spending review and had identified savings of over 100,000 in salary costs. In addition, the Civil Service Voluntary Exit Scheme will result in annual savings of over 320,000 annually in tranches 1 and 2. Account NI has continued to maintain service levels despite these reductions in staff costs. And with regard to introducing cost-related performance measures and benchmarking, DFP report that good progress has been made, and they also report that benchmarking has been carried out with other employee shared service organisations. In the public sector, in exercises with business service organisations, SIPFA and the Cabinet Office. Members, the results of this benchmarking has been widely positive, albeit there are still opportunities for further efficiencies and savings in relation to cost-related performance measures of account NI, which has produced baseline figures for 2013-14 and 2014-15 for the transactional services such as cost per invoice and cost of auditing per claim paid. It's extensive, the correspondence that we have received from them, and thank them for that. But in relation to staffing levels within account NI and retention of transaction processing staff within departments, DFP reports that account NI staff are due to fall by 13%, which is the equivalent of 28 full-time staff against the staff complement planned in the 2006 full business case. So the number of transaction processing staff retained within the department sits at 24.9 full-time equivalents, which is well within the full business case target of 29 full-time equivalents. Finally, in relation to customer satisfaction rates within account NI, the Department does report back to this committee that a large amount of work is being undertaken in that area, and this includes the completion of quarterly departmental finance manager scorecards and a customer satisfaction survey for finance managers, and indeed a customer satisfaction survey for finance directors. Results of these exercises have been widely positive. So as I say, members, if you've read it, it's extensive. Overall, it has been largely positive. I don't have any other comment to make. If members have, if they want to make any comments on it, or Eddie, if you want to.
I think just by way of reminder for the committee, I suppose the committee's concern at the time was that this was actually quite a high cost service, and it had more staff in it than the original business case had projected. There were also more staff out in departments doing perhaps workarounds around the system, and more staff retained in departments therefore than was envisaged in the original business case. The committee was keen really that account NI would give more emphasis to cost, and we'd benchmark its performance, and we'd try to set targets for reducing costs. And as you say, Chair, that's a very comprehensive response and shows a lot of progress in those areas. One thing just for information, although they've done some benchmarking, what they haven't been able to do is benchmark with other shared services on the basis that, in their view, the other shared services are different in scale or nature type of activity. But it does mean that we don't quite yet have any like-for-like benchmarking, which obviously would be preferable in terms of trying to get a measure of relative efficiency. But overall, I think a very comprehensive and comprehensive response, and one which has shown genuine activity in response to the committee's recommendations.
Absolutely, and they've taken our recommendations very, very seriously and are implementing them.
Chairperson, maybe through you, just to refresh my mind, explain to me, Eddie, could you, the difference between cost per invoice and the cost per invoice fully absorbed? Because there doesn't seem to be any significant improvement in cost per invoice fully absorbed. Why is that £7.45 per transaction?
Now, I'm no expert, you'll have to excuse my trying to explain this. The cost per invoice is just the direct staff cost, basically. The cost per invoice fully absorbed is where they've taken all the overheads into account. So that's why there's such a difference between those. One of the things about account NI is that an awful lot of the cost is in the contract with the service, the IT provision and so on. So you'll see that the direct cost is really only a fraction of the overall cost of account NI, and that's why there's such a difference between those.
Okay, second question. Are all government departments now on board? Are they all using?
All government departments are. I think there are a few, not MDPBs as such, but there were a few agencies of government departments which weren't on board, and there's still some scope, and I think the FP are still trying to expand the membership, so to speak, of Account NI, because obviously the more clients they can get, the more they can spread those overheads and reduce the cost per invoice.
And perhaps, casting our minds back to last week, to the scandal of the events company, perhaps, if they had been using this system, somebody might at least have recognised fake invoices.
Well, no, it's extremely possible.
Yeah.
The only thing I would be slightly concerned about is that the individuals concerned were adept at circumventing controls.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't give you a cast iron guarantee that they wouldn't have been able to get around them.
I agree, Denver, they were very clever.
Okay, members. Any other members? Sorry, Roy. Connor, did you?
You'd indicated that there's been some difficulty in identifying a comparable shared service. It's always good to try and have something equivalent to compare with, so that people remain focused about, if there are lessons to be learned elsewhere. Are there comparable organisations elsewhere in GB?
There are in GB, yes. There are several sort of large-scale shared service centres. What DFP and Account NI are saying is that those organisations are much bigger in scale, have much more process and activity, and therefore have much reduced costs. There's an argument, though, that at least if you do that benchmark and track it over time, you get some sense of relativities.
Even in terms of the other devolved regions, are there any smaller shared service centres where comparisons can be made? I'm
not quite sure about Scotland, I must admit, but I know certainly for England and Wales, the Cabinet Office oversees some shared service activities, and that's who they've tried to benchmark with.
Okay. And finally then, one of the measurements has actually gone up, the cost of audit per TNS claim. I'm not quite sure what's TNS.
The travel and subsistence.
Also, the cost for auditing them has gone up, and that's been put down to a reduction of activity. What's going on there? I'm just trying to understand. The activity was down, presumably do you not employ less people? And there's people, so I'm just curious, when a cost is increasing, that's always alarm bells with me. It's gone from £1.60 to £1.87 per item, so what's going on there?
Yeah, I think the problem there is that to some extent the staff costs are probably fixed within that time period, and what they're saying in the footnote is that they expect efficiency gains to come in the future if through VES and vacancy suppression they're actually going to reduce their staff numbers, and you would expect that unit cost to come down in the future.
Okay, and then finally, account NI, is it a bought-in service? Was it from BT and somebody else or something? Just, there's something vague in the back of my mind that it's not entirely publicly owned.
No, the staff are all civil service staff, but a lot of the supporting infrastructure is bought in.
And that being the case, I'll pursue the next question, which was from, again, it's going back to something in my memory, that the current contract would be coming up for renewal at some point, and unless you start at a very early stage, you end up being trapped in the current contract because you have no alternative. So is there some ongoing work to create options, or are they trapped with that BT contract that they have them over a barrel?
I mean, the contract will be up for renewal, and we'll have to go out. There'll have to be a tender exercise, but obviously the incumbent
As an advantage?
Yeah.
As long as that process has been put in time in a timely fashion.
Okay, thank you. Conor?
Just a brief question. The audited function, following John's question that you're talking about, don't having, is that complement what the departments are doing in terms of auditing, or is that replace?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood you in terms of.
Well, you're saying that some of the issues that affected the events company may have been picked up in this type of combined approach. So I presume then that that's some sort of auditing function that they provide. Does that replace what the department should have been doing themselves, or complement?
Sorry, there isn't really an auditing function directly provided by Account NI, but separately from that, when I was speaking about the response to the MOR on Bytel, there's now a new separate centralised governance unit which is going to do investigations and so on, so it would supplement what goes on within departments as well, which would have.
It doesn't replace it, it just adds to it.
Just that, within departments. Yeah, no, it's an add-on. So each department will still have its own internal audit, but then there'll be a central investigation unit.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, any other member? No? Members, this is to note, so I think maybe the clerk is going to prepare a response just back to them and thank them for their extensive correspondence. And anybody into that? Sure, nothing more. Okay, members, can I seek an agreement to go into closed session to discuss further business?
Okay.
Agreed. Okay.
This is the Northern Ireland Assembly